Every few years, the Pokemon world expands even further as we see new regions and generations introduced, but the Pokemon world is far bigger than we can even imagine. Even though we have 8 currently known regions in the main series, and a few others in various spin-off titles, there are still Pokemon out there who originate from a region we have never seen before. Every once in a while this will happen where a Pokemon will debut in one generation but not actually be native to that generation's region and will be stated to be from somewhere else entirely. These Pokemon can be assumed to be from regions we haven't ever seen before since they either haven't been seen in any other region or their home region has yet to be specified. We're going to be looking at a good handful of these Pokemon today and examining where they could possibly be from and if we'll ever find out for sure. The only disclaimer here is that we are not looking at any Pokemon from space, they have to be from the actual Pokemon world. With that said though, let's check it out. I'm gonna start off with an interesting one, and that's actually, believe it or not, Mew. Technically speaking, Mew is not actually from the Kanto region, as it is said in the Pokédex that it comes from South America, and as we have not had a region based on anywhere in South America yet, we have yet to see Mew's true home. Now, the mention of South America here is interesting since that's obviously a real-world location, and the Pokemon world in relation to the real one has always been a bit fuzzy. However, it seems that mentions of the real world are mostly tied to the earlier generations and have since largely been phased out in place of actual Pokemon locations, so we can assume that when they say that Mew is from South America, they mean a South American Pokemon region. Many people have been wanting a region based on this area for a while now, and if it brought along with it the origins of Mew, I would certainly welcome seeing one myself. Moving on, an interesting one in this regard would be Corphish and Crawdaunt, because truthfully, these two are actually one of the first regional variant Pokemon before regional variants were even a thing. This is because it states in Corphish's Pokédex entries that it was originally a foreign Pokemon that was imported to Hoenn as a pet. Furthermore, if you look at its evolution Crawdaunt, it very clearly has adapted to the presence of Sharpedo, sporting a look that mimics Sharpedo's appearance in deep water. So in actuality, not only have we not seen where Corphish and Crawdaunt are really from, we haven't even seen what they actually look like. As far as where they could be from though, since they are based on crawfish, they could interestingly also be from a South American Pokemon region, since a family of crawfish is known to live there. I also tend to associate crawfish with the South and Southeast United States myself, which could make for a very interesting Pokemon region as well. Either way, I really hope that one day we get to see Corphish and Crawdaunt's true home. A more recent example of this phenomenon would be Yungoos and Gumshoos, as they are not originally from Alola at all. They were brought into Alola to deal with the high Alolan Rattata population, which mimics the same scenario that happened in Hawaii with Yungoos' inspiration, the Mongoose. As a Gen 7 Pokemon, it's pretty clear that it's not native to any of the prior regions, and it wasn't mentioned to be native to Galar, which it definitely would have been if that was the case, leaving us with another instance of a never-before-seen home region for these Pokemon. What's really interesting though is that the mongoose that Yungoos is based on is originally from South and Southeast Asia, which is exactly where India is located, and India has been floating around lately as the setting of a possible future Pokemon region thanks to another Pokemon likely being from there that we will get into later. Having 2 different Pokemon possibly from the same unknown region is certainly a fascinating dynamic to say the least, and it'll be interesting to see if it ends up playing out that way. The other Pokemon from an unknown region most likely based on India are the new Galar Pokemon Cufant and Copperajah. It states in Copperajah's dex entry as such, and given that they are elephants with clear Indian inspirations, it's a pretty easy observation to make. Galar, aka the UK in real life, has had quite the history with India, so it makes sense why Copperajah would be here, and could simply be a way to reference that part of the nation's history. However, with evidence that a another Pokemon could also be from this hypothetical region, and these two Pokemon being introduced in the two most recent generations, it certainly makes you wonder about what could be in store for the future of the franchise. An Indian Pokemon region would definitely be very cultural, to say the least, so we're just gonna have to wait and see if any of this actually happens and what it ends up actually looking like if it does indeed become the real thing. One family of Pokemon that is a bit of a different case here but is immensely interesting are Meltan and Melmetal. Ever since these two were introduced, the question has been asked as to whether they are Gen 7 Pokemon or Gen 8 Pokemon, or even if they should be considered Kanto Pokemon since they debuted outside of Pokemon Go in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. This was already confusing enough to begin with, but then the Pokemon Company themselves decided to make it even more confusing, as during the Pokemon of the Year vote, Pokemon were all categorized by their region, with Meltan and Melmetal being included in the Galar etc. category, meaning that their region is unidentified. Furthermore, they are also listed in Pokemon Go as being from an unknown region, showing pretty definitively that they are not from Alola, Galar, Kanto, or anywhere else that we know of for that matter. Since they originated from Pokemon Go, it somewhat makes sense that this would be up in the air, but you would think that they would have figured it out and specified something if they planned on bringing these two Pokemon into the main series. I personally think that they should have put them at the beginning of the Kanto Pokedex as numbers 0 and 00, I guess, since they debuted in Let's Go, and discovering a new Pokemon in an already known region would have been a lot of fun. It doesn't seem like they've figured out what they are going to do with Meltan and Melmetal though, or at least they haven't told us yet, so we're just going to have to keep waiting and hold out hope for an answer. Another set of Pokemon that you wouldn't normally think of as being a part of this category, but quite literally are defined as such, would be Growlithe and Arcanine. Similar to the situation with Mew, it downright says in Arcanine's Pokedex entries that it is a Chinese Pokemon. This partly has to do with Arcanine being based around the Chinese guardian lion statues that are used to protect buildings from bad influences. However, just because it's based on something Chinese wouldn't mean that it has to be a Chinese Pokemon. You don't exactly see Lapras being a Galar Pokemon even though it's based on the Loch Ness Monster, for instance. So the fact that it specifically states this about Arcanine in the Pokedex is pretty cut and dry evidence that it does come from a Chinese Pokemon region. A Chinese region is another thing that has been on the minds of fans for a while, and while it does seem like it could be a prime candidate to become an actual thing someday, there's no way of really knowing where Game Freak are looking to make the next Pokemon regions. If we ever do get a Chinese region, however, I really hope they acknowledge this fact about Arcanine's design. One more Pokemon we're going to discuss today that also comes from Kanto is Arbok, and even though Arbok is natively from Kanto as far as we can tell, there are some variants of it that aren't. For the first few generations before Game Freak basically gave up on the idea, Arbok had different patterns on its chest depending on the region it was from. In Kanto, Johto, and Hoenn, all of the Arboks have slightly different chest patterns, and if you count how Kanto's Arbok in the Gen 1 games also have markings on their back, the ones in Sinnoh are also different as well, although that's more so seen as a design tweak than an actual form difference. With that said though, the Pokedex has mentioned on multiple occasions that 6 to as many as 20 plus variations have been discovered, and to this point we've basically only seen 3 of them. I don't suspect we'll ever get to see these since, as I mentioned, starting in Gen 4, all of the Arboks began to use the base pattern and no longer varied based on region. But since the number of known discovered patterns increased to 20 plus as recently as Generation 7, it does show that it is still somewhat a part of Arbok's design. And with the vast majority of these still unseen, it is essentially guaranteed that at least some of them lie in regions that we have never been to before. The last couple of Pokemon we're going to talk about today come from the most recently explored Galar region, starting with the ultimate blockhead derp master itself, Eiscue. One of Ice-Q's Pokedex entries talks about how it drifted into the Galar region from, quote, a frigid place, and since Sword and Shield is clearly the very first time we have encountered this Pokemon, it must be from somewhere we haven't seen before. I did discuss this fact about Ice-Q in a previous video where I mentioned that it likely comes from the Pokemon world's Arctic somewhere, as that just seems like the logical conclusion for a penguin Pokemon from a supposedly frigid place. Since this Pokemon is still so new, however, it's hard to imagine that we'll get to see its homeland anytime soon, especially because if it is the Poke Arctic, it's likely uninhabited. Nevertheless though, it is still very interesting to know that Ice-Q is from another place outside of Galar entirely. Finally, the last Pokemon we are going to cover today is also one of the newest ones that's been revealed, Kubfu and its evolution Urshifu. Like other Pokemon on this list, they have their own unique way of fitting into this conversation, as these Pokemon were actually at one time from the Galar region, but according to the Sword and Shield website, they migrated away from Galar long ago and currently live in mountainous areas far away from the region. Now, that could mean literally anywhere, but it is worth noting that Kung Fu, where both of these Pokemon get their inspiration, is Chinese in origin, so more evidence of a Chinese region maybe? It would obviously be really cool to know one way or the other, but even with the Isle of Armor expansion that Kubfu and Urshifu feature in yet to be released, I highly doubt that's going to be revealed. I will say that it is somewhat nice to not know, however, considering that it gives you the feeling that there is more yet to explore that could be on the horizon. Thank you all so much for watching my video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and let me know where you think these Pokemon are from in the comments. Subscribe if you're new for more Pokemon content all the time, and check out my remixes on Spotify, as well as my Pokemon Cardinal project if you'd like to help out the channel more. I'll see you all on Saturday with another one, hit that notification bell so you don't miss it, and until then, as always, I love you all, and I will smell you guys later.